All right, we are on. We were just talking about New Jersey and New York snow as we were here in North Carolina. So we thank you guys for being here and thank you guys for being online. We are going to talk today about what sellers actually care about and what they don't. And we're going to add a little bit of the real ROI staging in it. So we're glad you guys are here. Please know that you don't want to listen to me all the time. It's like I went the wrong way. Here are our future huddles, ladies and gentlemen. Um, please jump in, thoughts, comments, questions here in the room, plus online. You guys who are online, we're grateful that you guys are coming in from all over the place. If you are local, it is always much better to be here in the room so we can have conversation, but we'll take you however we can get you. So introducing me, I'm here, Rich Burgraff. You guys know me. If you don't know me, I sell residential real estate here in North Carolina in the Triangle. You guys know that because I work with you guys who are in the room, you guys who are online. That is me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about me as we go further. But let's talk about, what do you think sellers care about most right now? You guys in the room, what do you think? Right now, the market as it is now, what are you seeing? What are your sellers telling you? What do you think they care the most about?
A lot of them are still stopped 4 years ago.
Right.
The market 4 years ago, in their heads at least. The usual suspects. Price. Quick turnaround.
And I agree. I think that a lot of people now they're trying to understand the market. They're trying to understand what does this market actually look like. I think I heard it said that the buyers think it's like 2007 and the sellers think it's 2021, and neither one of them are right. Certainly here in the Triangle, I think there's always an inventory issue, so there's always an opportunity for a well-prepared house to sell. But I think sellers are looking a lot and saying, sell my house yesterday for the $100,000 over asking price offer, and I'm certainly not educated. Exactly. They heard it. They think it's still going to be that way, and we have to do a little bit of educating. So I think a lot of times what we see is that we come in and we start talking about what's our marketing going to be. The marketing is not important, so we can talk about that, but not really the psychology of what's going on. I think we look at a lot of here's where our price is rather than like how we're positioning the home to sell quickly and for the most money. I think we do a lot of talking about the features of the home rather than what's the outcome here, what are we looking to do. And I think the biggest thing I see, and when I talk to people, and even when I'm talking to on a buyer side, talking to others, listing agents, I think there's a lot of assumption that we think that our people think like us. Like they're the clients. They don't always understand all this stuff. I think they think that we assume that they know what we know. And I think there's a lot of that. So we're talking about things that we think are important. We really haven't explained to them why it's important. So here are things that we were talking about that we think sellers care about, really care about. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on these. First off, being uncertainty. Is my house going to sell? How long do you think it's going to be on the market? What do you think can go wrong with the house? I think that's a big thing too. I'm just going to throw one in here. I think a lot of times you get clients who look at it and say, my house is worth this because I saw this house and this house and this house in my neighborhood and they sold for this dollar amount. Don't necessarily think, well, what features of that house, what was going on with the house, what the size of that house, all sorts of things. Like that house is in my neighborhood and that sold for $1 million. So my house should sell for $1 million too, when they're not the same house. So they have a certain expectation, like, well, I'm not going to list the house for less than that. And sometimes we have to have those conversations of what can go wrong. It might not appraise for that amount. What have you thought about in situations like that? So I think a lot of it is us being able to talk to them about not just what can go right, but what can potentially go wrong with that. I think end of the day, I think that clients look at, I want to list the house for this, I want to get that. They don't necessarily think about what are you walking away with? Like, what are the net proceeds here? That, I had one just this past week. First question the person said to me, They're like, hey, I talked to another agent. They said they would do it for 5%. Would you do it for 5%? I said, sure. Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. And you make your decision. So when they looked at it, they're like, I would rather have your whole power of all the stuff you're going to do behind me and sell that house for more and have fewer repair requests and fewer things to negotiate later on. So I keep more money in my pocket rather than someone just saying, I'm going to do it for cheaper. I don't see anybody driving around in Yugos. So I think when you think about things, we don't always go for the cheap. We go for what's going to get us there and what's going to be the best. Other part of that is simple disruption. Hey, it would be great if every house was not occupied and we can stage them all. And Glenn's going to talk about staging in a couple minutes. We can have a blank slate that we can work with, but we have to work around things. We have to work around showings around their life. We got to work around their kids. Sometimes with pets, how many times you go into a place and you hear, oh, this place is good, but there's this pet smell. How do I deal with that? Or I have a client right now getting ready to list their house. They have 5 dogs. Right. So it's like, how do you work around that? And there's only so much you can do. Working with that kind of stuff, working on their work schedule. How can they want to make sure we have a kids listing agreement that we do for when we have young kids. We are not above bribing kids with Amazon gift cards to make sure they make their beds in the morning.
Right.
So yeah, it is a simple thing, but we do a little agreement, and it's like every day you make your bed in the morning, you put your stuffed animals back on, you neaten up your room. They check it off. They do it for a week. We send them out a gift card, and it's just a little thing to keep the kids engaged and excited about the process, especially when you have some of these listings. It's not like you're getting wall-to-wall back-to-back listings. You may have showings. You have a showing today. You may have another one, like may get somebody right now who's like, I want to go see the house at 2:00. So it's got to be ready. And on our side of it, are we being clear? Are we confident that we can sell that house? Have we done our homework? What's our strategy? This is not the put a sign up in the yard world and hope it's going to sell. What are we doing? How are we planning that? And we do a ton with that. I think when we all see that kind of stuff, we're showing that confidence to our clients. We're going to talk more about that as we go on. So how can you reduce uncertainty within a listing? So I'd love to hear from some of the people online and you guys, like, what are some of the things you do when you're seeing kind of a misalignment between what a client is wanting and when you're going in and talking about listing that house? Totally putting Matt in the spot, by the way.
Okay. Reduce uncertainty.
Any of those types of issues, you see someone's like, well, is my house going to sell? Or is it going to sell for this amount? Or we don't want to be inconvenienced, but we want this. Or we're not really living in the house, but we're living in the house, and confusion going on. What are some of the things that you do to kind of show your confidence?
Educating them on the market, helping them know, setting expectations, helping them understand what's really happening with the homes around them. And kind of what we talked about earlier, about this is the market that we're in, and there's such a large segment, at least that I know, that, they've got that rate they don't want to give up, but, they hate that they didn't jump in when they should have jumped in, when the market was much stronger.
Right.
And, there's a lot that we do to help with that, to help reduce, the anxieties and the uncertainty, and one of the ways that I win the listing is help them, what is their next step? What is going to happen next for them? And, it's the whole thing. You may lose a little on this side, but because, the home prices are actually fantastic in many markets,
right.
Make it up on the other side, just having those type of conversations. And that usually helps, hey, I want to work with this guy.
Exactly.
So building trust.
And I think that's, and this, and some of you guys who might not know me here online may not know this, like my whole background in sales is relationship based, and you're the same way. It's building trust by understanding what people are looking for, what's most important to them, and all that part. And sometimes it's having the uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you want to do this, or explaining what's going on right now. Well, yes, you could have sold your house 4 years ago and it could have looked like this, but most times I see people, they're selling their house for a reason. They're not selling their house because they decided it's the most profitable right now. They have other things going on in their life. So it's building that relationship and understanding those things and saying, hey, that baby's coming and you don't have room in your old house. You need to sell this house and go buy the new house, or a divorce, or a job change, or anything like that. Understanding that those types of things, I think, reduces that uncertainty when you know what they're looking for.
Tisha, by the way, online, she said that she always makes sure she has a plan and a timeline, so she can set that expectation beforehand. From my understanding, if there's a price reduction, you can preface, if we get to the point that we have to do a price reduction, here's what's going to happen. Also, I know you actually mention this all the time, that especially when listings are sitting longer than people are used to for a while, really setting the timeline.
Yes.
And you can't just push a listing once online either.
Right.
You have to keep pushing that listing, finding unique angles. Maybe this could be good for an investor. Let's try it that way. Okay, maybe this could be for a first-time buyer, whatever that situation is. And tweaking it and promoting it multiple different facets.
Well, and Letitia, I love that, because yeah, I mean, it's developing that timeline, developing that plan. I agree. We do that all the time. And I think that's important for us all. Like, this is our expectation. This is what we want to do. And that starts way before that listing goes active. But it doesn't end at that point either. So before that, it's, what are we doing to get this house prepared? How, whether that's making sure things are cleaned up, doing the minor things that look big. We're going to talk about staging in a minute, which I think is a huge piece to that. But all of it is that preparation beforehand. And then that goes even further into it. Let's take that to the next step. And like, now you have a listing that something happened that you didn't expect, or you didn't think was going to be that much of a negative thing. So I'll give a quick example of my own. I have a listing now that, beautiful house. Everybody loves the craftsmanship of the house. Everybody loves the house itself. Backs up onto the highway. So I don't see, much like us, we have a fire truck going by right now. We get the noise. So you have to deal with that kind of stuff. That was, we spare no expense to make sure that you guys are entertained. So look at that. We timed that perfectly. So yeah, and it's like, I live by the airport, so I don't hear the noise. And like, they live there forever, and it's white noise. The house next door, they have a pool in the backyard, so clearly it's not bothering them. But when people are coming in and they have a half hour to look at a house, they hear the noise, like, I don't know if this is going to be okay. And it's become more of an issue. So now we look at it and say, okay, well, that is causing a problem. What are the things we can do to make that, less of an issue for people? I'm not a huge fan of, I think a lot of us just fall on, let's just lower the price and somebody will buy it. It's cheap enough. But to me, I think it's more that, what else are we doing to make that house great, livable? What are we doing to educate the buyer's agents? Like, the whole thing, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, of buyer's agents and how little they ask me questions. And I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about that. But yeah, it's understanding that timeline and adjusting when we need to adjust. So here are some things that sellers think that they care about. I think they talk about list price. You get the question about commission all the time. And yes, commission is negotiable. We talk about that in a variety of different ways. We could talk about that in a little bit, just kind of how we handle that from and we break that down into a two-sided commission conversation. There's the people think that they know. So like, oh, what's your commission? Well, will you do it for this? Well, hey, everything is negotiable, but I'm not giving away my service. I'm not giving away my expertise. If you want to pay less, what are you willing? What is not important to you? And I use that as a thing too. Sometimes if someone only cares about that, and they truly don't, they just, I think because we haven't educated them, they think that they do. I think sometimes if someone comes in, all they care about is, I want to pay you the least amount of money and do the most amount of work. I am not obligated to work with them. And sometimes I will recommend them to somebody else, because that's the best way to do it. People care a lot about marketing packages, brokerage brand. That stuff's all great, but I mean, we have some awesome marketing packages as a piece of what we do, not as a this is it and that's that. Like it is part of the overall plan. So I really think that when we get into that, it's really understanding more what is the total package of what we are going to do to make sure you guys make this money. So here's my question. When does commission become the main topic in your appointments? When does that come up? Who said immediately? Ah, Sam. I'm glad you said that because, and I'm going to push back on that a little bit and ask why does it come up immediately? Like, how are you starting off your appointments? I'd love to understand that a little bit better. I find that people ask certain questions because they don't know what other questions say. The two most often asked questions that I think really don't truly matter because they're not really the things that people really want to know. How long have you been doing this? And how much are you going to charge me commission? I think what people want to know is how well equipped are you to do business with me? And what am I getting out of it? So I flip that around. I'm keeping it simple. Someone comes to me in the first thing and says, what are you charging for this? I'm going to respectfully say, let's talk a little bit more about what your objectives are and how we go about doing things. Then we'll talk about what the cost and the value is with that. I also, especially since the NAR settlement and everybody made a big deal about buyer's agent commission, which really never changed here. It was always negotiable. I break that down into two separate pieces and talk about them individually, which at the easiest part, someone says, oh, so you're going to charge me 6%. I'm like, well, here's how it goes down. Here's what you get for our package that charges 3.6%. And here's what we recommend you pay to the buyer's agent, keeping in mind that's negotiable, so that we look at it as two separate ways. Sometimes taking that number and making two smaller numbers makes it easier than one big number. However, most of the time, by the time we have gotten to that point, when we've had a good conversation before that and understand what they're looking for, and they see that we know what we're talking about, it's not an issue. When do you see it? I'm going to guess you see it probably further on in the conversation. You don't get it a whole lot up front.
Oh, the conversation about commission.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if you've been in the business long enough, you know that if that comes up early, you know, it's immediately you can tell a change. You know. If you know, one of the things I do is, you know, kind of in that first introduction. Yeah, I've been in the business 15 years, blah, blah, blah. A few highlights, but I don't dwell on that because then that just becomes white noise. And then it's always at the end for me, you know, talking about commission.
Right.
If you talk about it early, that's all they're thinking about. You know, they're tuning you out. And you've lost your opportunity to show your value. You've lost your opportunity to really show them your plan and what you're going to do. And then, like you said, at the end, when you can do that breakdown for commission, it's just like, you know, these are the things that we can do here, here, and here, you know, based off of, you know, what your objectives and what your goals are that we've already discussed.
Exactly. And you hit on the other one. I said how long you've been doing this part. Again, I think people are trying to start a conversation. They just don't know what to ask. So I hit on it, but I try to explain to them. I had somebody say this to me and it stuck with me, is that there is a difference between having 15 years of experience in this business and having a year of experience in this business that you then repeated 14 more years. That it's not about how long you've been doing it. It's when you're doing your listing appointment, you're talking to your clients, it's more you show your value by showing that you know what you're doing. I mean, I can talk, hey, I've been in the business this long, I've been in sales this long. Great, they're nice numbers. But if I talk and you're like, man, this guy doesn't have a clue, don't work with me. Like, it's really more understanding that is exactly what you said, is getting to, am I the guy who's going to be able to help you out? Any other comments online? We're going to bring up my buddy Glenn Wiley from Redefine. We're going to talk about staging. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So Glenn's done a bunch of staging for us. We're going to talk about the beauty of aging house and why that's important sometimes, why you might not want. So I got some questions for you. So our first question is staging about increasing the price or about protecting it?
You know, I think it obviously it depends, but in the market we're in right now, I think it's probably about protecting it. And because you're not seeing offers above the list price right now.
Right.
I mean, maybe few and far between, but you know, a buyer is going to offer something under list price. It may be a few thousand or maybe tens of thousands under list price. And so I think in the current market, it's about protecting that list price and making sure that you're getting as close to that list price as possible.
Right. And I think a lot of that comes from allowing people to picture themselves in that home.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, studies have shown that when a potential buyer walks into a home and it's well furnished, not personalized to the current owner, depersonalized, but well furnished with beautiful art and accessories, it helps the buyer to see that as a future home. And as opposed to walking into a cold, empty house where they're having to imagine that, and most people are not very good at it.
Right.
They don't know, well, where do I put the furniture? How is this going to look with our stuff in it? And it does help them create that vision in their head. Yeah.
I'm going to tell two quick stories here. One, making the house less personal. We are here in North Carolina. Not all of you are in North Carolina, so this may not resonate for you as much, but there is a very deep passion about the color blue here in North Carolina. And I have had clients that have walked into a house and they have seen something in Carolina blue or Duke blue, and they're like, nope, there was a Duke fan that lived here. I like Carolina. I'm out. And I mean, we laugh about it, like, hey, you can paint. That kind of stuff happens. But the more you want to make it valuable for everybody. I also will tell the story of a lot of times the things that I learned are the knucklehead things that I did myself as I went through my own experience. When I bought my house, the people were still living in it. It was staged with their furniture. So my guest room, I looked at it. They had a queen size bed in it. And I was like, I have a queen size bed. I'm going to put my stuff in here. It's going to be great. We did the walkthrough. Now all their stuff was out. I went into that same room and said, my stuff's not going to fit in here because the room looks smaller with nothing in it. I think a lot of people think rooms look bigger.
They do not, no.
Yeah, they look
smaller. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's just another thing. It shows, for instance, we always, in a master bedroom, we will always use a king size bed unless it's just impossible, because people want to see that their bed will fit in there. Sometimes it's obvious it will fit, but a lot of times it's like, if it's empty, it looks smaller. I'm not sure my stuff's going to fit in here. Yeah, so it absolutely makes a huge difference there.
If I had seen my house empty, I wouldn't have bought it. No, because I would have thought that room was too small.
Yeah.
And that goes right to protecting the price,
Mm-hmm.
is that you want to make sure people can see and value, hey, this is going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what do buyers actually react to, even if they don't realize it? Kind of a little bit what we were just talking about.
Well, first off, I'll mention something that they don't react to. When a house is empty, they're focusing on all the imperfections. So when we're talking about a resale as opposed to new construction, it's going to have imperfections. It's a quote unquote used house. Right. So there's going to be blemishes, and that's what a buyer is going to focus on in an empty house, because there's nothing else to grab their attention. Is the various imperfections that you're going to have in a house that's 5 years old, 20 years old, whatever. When it's staged, it takes their attention away from imperfections, because now they have a focal point in the rooms that they walk into. And whether they realize it or not, they're more focused on the staging and how that complements the overall space, as opposed to looking around at every little blemish.
Yeah.
Also, we hang artwork that covers some of those blemishes too. And, we put down rugs and
Right.
things like that. And we're not trying to trick anyone, but that's how a buyer is going to spend their time in an empty house is investigating all those various little imperfections.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you look at stuff, and I see it all the time. If there's nothing else to look at, that little scratch that
Yeah,
nobody really cares about.
right. That's going to get covered anyway.
Right. I had one where literally yesterday doing an inspection for new construction.
Mm-hmm.
And just going through, like, it is just getting ready to do the orientation. And the client had a question about something to do with where the spot where the refrigerator was going to go. And she's like, well, but if they do that, we're going to see that little piece. I'm like, there's going to be a refrigerator there.
Right.
Because there was no refrigerator. It was easy
Became an
to
issue.
deal with. Yeah. It just became a thing where that, and when you're talking resale, even more so, because
Mm-hmm.
I know I'd love to think that I don't ever touch anything in my house and it's absolutely perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
there's always stuff.
Oh yeah. And buyers will notice.
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen staging prevent a price reduction?
I don't know that I can say for sure that I've seen that, but because typically, we are staging the house before it hits the market, and so I certainly we've had tons of feedback about how it helped sell the property. We have staged some homes where it's been on the market for a while, which we're happy to do, but if it's a consideration at all, I mean, you got to put your best foot forward when it hits the market. Those first 30 days are so important. I don't have to tell you that. But we've staged homes that have been on the market for 90 days, 120 days, and where they have done price reductions before they came to us, $10,000 price reduction, $25,000 price reduction. And then, we came in and let's just say for sake of argument, it was a $2,500 staging. That's a huge difference between dropping the price 25,000 and they were successful in selling that house after it was staged.
Yeah. I think that's great because I have that conversation a lot. And sometimes I'm running this out with a couple now that we've talked about where they're like, yeah, we're not like, they're looking at the staging as an investment. Like it's going to cost them money versus the value.
Right. Because it's coming out of their pocket right then and there, as opposed to a price reduction where it's just numbers on a piece of paper.
Right. Which I think, and I would rather them do it right up front because we have that same conversation of, hey, we don't, well, we can wait 30 days and see what kind of feedback we get and then come back and do it.
Sure.
But that's going to mean taking the house off the market for at least a day to let you do what you need to do, redoing pictures again, because why wouldn't you? And you also missed out on those people. You're still 31 days in. So while we can go back to the people who saw the house, there are a lot of people in that first 30 days who looked online, saw what it was, and moved on.
Yep.
We don't know who they are because they moved on. So we're missing out on those. So yeah, I think those are the things that I think people don't always see when it comes to staging. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and we're staging a house as we speak that has been on the market since October. We're staging it right now, and I think it's going to make a huge, gorgeous home, and I think it's going to make a huge difference because the rooms are really large, and I think when people walk in there, they're just kind of they don't see it. So I think this is going to make a huge difference for them.
Do you find this one isn't even one of our prepared questions?
Sure.
My own personal one. Do you find yourself staging more newer homes, older homes, or does it not matter?
I would say we're about 50-50. So probably about a third or more of the homes we stage are new construction. And then, another third are probably under 5 years old. And then the last third could be 20, 30 years old.
Okay.
So it's all over the board. The new construction is it's great because When someone is only, hey, I only want to buy new construction, they're seeing a lot of homes, and yes, they can go into a model home, but they usually don't have a model home for every model that they have. They usually have a model home for that one special model, and then everything else is, you have to use your imagination. So we do work with a lot of realtors and home builders that to stage their new construction.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking the older home part.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times with that, a lot of times I've seen an older home and it's a person who's been in that house for a while. The furniture they have is a little dated too, but also from the imperfection standpoint,
Yeah.
of course there are going to be imperfections. It's in the older home, we call it character, but but it's still there.
Sure.
And that way to be able to really see yourself in that house too, and not see the imperfections,
Yeah.
not see the whatever, the squeaky floor, or the one that I get, like the number of times when people hit their head on the dining room like light
Oh yes, yeah.
there.
That's me. That's me. If I can hit my head on it.
Oh, I'm like, yeah, because
Yeah.
there would be a table here.
Right, exactly.
That kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, that stuff happens all the time. So a time when staging doesn't make sense.
So I think it's a matter of, well, there's probably there's a few situations. If let's say that they're living in the home while it's on the market, which is of course very, very common, and they've got kids, they've got dogs, and there's no way around that. It's a lived-in house, and you kind of have to work with what they have, and we do that too. I mean, we go in and we'll do a consultation with the homeowner and the agent, walk through the house, help them work with what they have. And I think that's it's very inexpensive, and I think that's a great thing you can do. But it's just, they're not going to pull out their furniture, and a lot of staging companies are going to be very hesitant to put furniture into a house with 3 kids and 5 dogs, to use your earlier example. And then if the price point is just too low, which it doesn't seem like there's a lot of inventory out there, below, let's say below, in our market here, below 300,000 would be a very low priced home. It may not make sense from an economic standpoint. But and I would say in this market, once you get above that, certainly above that $500,000 mark, it's always worth considering.
Yeah.
We have a comment online actually for you. Tammy is asking if you've heard about how a lot of stagers and other companies are pushing agents to buy their own staging materials. Do you recommend that?
Absolutely not.
I'm glad you said that.
Right. No, I don't know why I would recommend that an agent buy their own stuff, but I've known agents that have done that and then have come to us and said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. They will literally have, and it's not furniture. I don't think I've ever met an agent that has an inventory of furniture, but artwork and accessories and stuff like that. And now they're a real estate agent and a stager at the same time. It's just, a successful real estate agent hires the right vendors to do all of those things, photography and, whatever. It needs painting. Are you going to paint your own listing? I mean, that's crazy.
Right.
You gather a group of good, trusted contractors and vendors, and you farm all that stuff out to them because your focus is on getting listings and selling your listings.
Yeah, I'm a big let the expert be the expert guy.
Yeah.
Like, our job is to be here and then let you guys, whether it's our attorneys, our inspectors, our stagers, all of you, like, you guys do that stuff way, way better. The only time I would ever say that, like, where I'm going to step in and where it's going to be an issue where I think is house, I'm only saying this because I know the people in the room, is that if I see a house and they're Red Sox fans, I'm going to take all that stuff out and put Yankee stuff in because we all know it's going to sell.
Just refer.
Or we just refer it to somebody else.
We're not gonna get.
The funny thing is the number of Red Sox fan clients that I have is pretty funny. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a big Yankee fan.
I love Red Sox fans. They're so much fun.
They are. They've gotten, I like to say they've gotten used to having their October's free.
Yeah. There you go.
They have extra time. But I agree. I think the staging always makes sense. In all seriousness, like maybe I might have a bouquet of fake flowers to put into a place,
Sure.
and towels or something like that. But
yeah,
as far as doing a true staging job, we want the expert people.
Yeah.
How should agents position staging when sellers resist?
Well, we talked a little bit about the price point. So, in this market, where we are in the Raleigh area, I think most of your listings are going to be between $500,000 and $1 million. I think that's probably the vast majority of the market there. And this is going to, depending on where you are and what staging company you're using, I'm sure the prices can, vary quite a bit. But if a $2,000 to $3,000 investment in staging helps reduce your days on market, helps you preserve your price point by, let's say by 1 or 2%, well, you've made more money than you've spent on the staging. And again, back to that point of making sure you're putting your best foot forward when you put it on the market. We hear that all the time where, hey, we send them a quote. The agent says, I just can't. I haven't been able to talk them into it. And then 2 months later, they come back and said, hey, they want to revisit this. Well, like you said, you've lost all of that opportunity, and I think your best opportunity to sell that house is in the first 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
And once you get past that 60-day mark, well, now there's something wrong with the house. Buyers agents are going to pay attention. They're going to certainly try to educate their buyer clients on, well, this has been on the market for 97 days. So there's a problem here. It's either priced too high or there's something wrong with the house.
Right.
So they're going into it like that right away. And so I think for a listing agent, the importance is to stress to the client, how vital it is that we've got this dialed in from day one.
Right. And I think that's a huge point. I think a lot of times we look at it and it's more like, okay, well, what are we going to list it for? What's the commission going to be? All those simple numbers of it.
Mm-hmm.
The job is to get the house sold.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's having those more difficult conversations. And what I think, and I will say too, in my own growth over the years, that sometimes I've looked at staging as an expense rather than an investment. But just like anything else, like I feel like as we continue to improve how we do things, looking at a lot of things, the client a lot of times is saying like, hey, North Carolina, we are in an as-is state. We don't have to fix anything. I can just put my house on the market and that's that. That's great. You have a product to sell. So whether it's explaining to them, yes, your HVAC system is old, but it's working fine. You are going to have the people who are going to be scared off by that. You're going to have the people who are going to say, I need to put more money into that. Where, okay, well, maybe it makes sense to get your HVAC serviced and get a home warranty for it and take away that problem. It is the same thing with staging. It's the same level of investment. People need to see how they're going to live in that house.
Yeah.
And they want to understand that. I think of the conversation that I would have with the house that you did for me over in Apex.
Mm-hmm.
So that front room was staged as an office, and it is ideally an office.
Mm-hmm.
But because of how it was set up with the closet in there, I would have people who would come in, open houses or different things, and go, could this be used as a bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, it could, but nobody was going to.
Right.
Like you weren't going to make, that was a 5-bedroom house. That was not going to be bedroom number 6. The The bathroom was way on the other side of that. So sometimes giving people the picture of how it should be or how it would best be makes it even better too, because nobody who was looking for a 6-bedroom house was going to buy that. They were not going to be happy with that bedroom.
Right.
So being able to take that and allowing people to say, this is the best use for the house, it works or it doesn't, I think is something that we don't always think of, but I think is a huge value.
Yeah. Yeah. You're informing the buyer, what can be done with a room or a space.
Yeah. I think that's great. What's the biggest myth about staging?
I think that it's probably that it's only for luxury homes.
Yeah.
High-end luxury homes, which, in this market, well, let's just say for sake argument, million plus. We stage lots of homes, $500,000-$600,000, which is sort of middle of the pack here. But I do think a lot of home owners who, they're putting a home on the market for, let's say, 575, like, well, I mean, staging's for I've seen it on TV, and these are homes they're selling for, $1.5 million. I mean, that just seems like a superfluous expense, and it's not. It can work for a $600,000 home, just like it'll work for $1 million plus home.
Agreed. I had another house that there was literally like, here was our house right around the corner, literally the same house. That one was empty, ours was staged.
Mm-hmm.
Even that agent was coming over because our price was a little bit higher than that.
Yeah.
And the agent was coming over. We actually would do open houses together because she was like, yeah, your house is definitely better than mine. And she had priced hers a little bit lower. And we were working together and say like, hey, if you saw this house at this value, if that doesn't work for you, go look around the corner and go look at that one.
Yeah.
Now, I was kind of in a good spot with that because we had the staging.
Yeah.
Because then people would go over there, they would see that, they would kind of see the blemishes with that and come back. But if it became a price thing, then fine, they went to that house where they weren't willing to do those things. But it was able to get us more people interested and more buyers. And that was a $700,000 house. It didn't have to be $1 million house to do it.
Staging can create the impression of luxury.
Yeah.
However you want to define a luxury home, you can define it yourself as a listing agent and a seller by things like staging, by things like painting, like sellers fall in love with their blue walls or their, whatever the case may be. It's how they've had it. They absolutely love it. And they like, everyone, how could you not love this? It looks how great it looks. But the problem is it's personalized. And so doing things like, putting a fresh coat of, a shade of white now, those are the popular shades, 10, 15 years ago, it was agreeable gray. And before that, it was builder beige and,
Right.
Whatever the case may be. But the whites are great because, not to get off on a tangent here, but the whites are great because it really does sort of create a blank slate, but you can bring in a little bit of warmth through the shade of white. There's literally hundreds of shades of white. So, and it does create a feeling of, it helps create that palette for that luxury feeling.
Agreed. And I think it definitely separates.
Yeah.
Saves people money in the long run.
It does.
What do agents misunderstand most about what you do?
Well, I think so. One of the things would be a lot of times when we get inquiries from a new prospective agent client, and we view the agents as our clients, even though a lot of times the homeowner is paying for it. We're probably never going to do business with that homeowner again, but we'll do business with the real estate agent again. One of the first things they're like is, look, I'm not looking to stage every room in the house. I just want to work on the main living areas. Well, that's typically what we do. When we go in and stage, let's say you got a 5-bedroom home, we'll probably stage the master bedroom, but we're not going to stage the other 4 bedrooms unless they want it. We've done it.
Okay.
It's expensive. But we're going to stage the main living areas, the family room, the office, the kitchen, dining, the master bedroom, covered outdoor areas, the places where people are going to spend their most time is what we're going to focus on. So yeah, I find that quite often that's the first thing they ask, like, look, I'm just really, I don't want to stage the entire house. And like, you shouldn't.
Right.
It's a waste of money. We don't need to stage 4 bedrooms, to give people an idea and to create that image. You'll get a much better bang for your buck by just focusing on the main areas.
Yeah. Well, and like going back to that same house where we did the main area is the office,
Mm-hmm.
and then doing like the bonus room upstairs
Sure.
to show that those places out and just give that more personality to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the myths, that I overcame myself was that it's expensive.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's really not. It's not expensive, but it also is when you think about reducing those days on market and
Yeah.
getting a better price for the house. And again, we're going back to what's putting more money in the
Yeah.
seller's pocket. That it, like anything else, is an investment, and we're just not in that world of just throw a sign out there and people are going to start lining up.
Yeah.
That we got to be smart about these things, whether it's that or whether it's like I was saying before. I have a client with an older HVAC system, and we're like, get it serviced because people are going to think they're going to have to replace it.
Yep.
Any of those things where we're eliminating objections for people, and I think staging is kind of a little bit undervalued by some.
I think certainly homeowners and most agents that don't have any experience with staging don't have any clue what it costs.
Right.
And so, yeah, even with $1 million, I think the most expensive staging we've ever done was $5,000, and that's for a $2.5 million house where we're staging huge areas. Most of them, $2,500 to $3,000, more or less. And if that saves $10,000 in list price,
Yeah, pretty good investment.
Yeah.
Contact you if they got questions.
Phone or email, whatever they prefer. My phone number is 919-280-1405. The email is a little long. It's Glenn with 2 N's at redefinehomedesign.com.
We'll make sure everybody gets an email out at the end.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I was going to say, don't make me hit the buttons to go back. That's it up. I sell houses. I don't do AV work. This was pretty impressive that I was even able to get this far without totally going the wrong direction. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Rich. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd love to get any other questions online. We have here how often you guys are recommending staging, any questions you may have for me. Glenn still has his mic on, so if you have questions for him, he can get you too.
He said not enough. I don't recommend staging enough.
I think most of us don't. I think most of us don't. And that kind of ties in a little bit. Like I wanted to talk about some of the conversations just in our last few minutes, how we've kind of changed our conversations on talking about the price, talking about our marketing, talking about commission, to really talking more about what's our desired outcome, what's the overall net. We talk timeline, strategy, those types of things. This is all part of it. So, and I want to just spend the last few minutes kind of talking about strategy because that ties in with marketing and all this stuff. I've mentioned a couple of things, so hopefully, and I'd love to hear what you guys do too, because just because it's how I do it does not mean it's the best way, because I learn stuff from you guys all the time. But we started out, one of the first things we would do, we were going into list of houses. We're just going to kind of walk through as if we're doing a buyer tour and tell you what we see just in their house the way that it is. Now, 90% of the time I'd come back from that and it would say, yeah, you know what, this house is, because people aren't ready, the house isn't show ready. So number one thing is too cluttered, declutter your stuff out. And that became the focus. We've adjusted where, well, yes, we do that. And we look at and we ask them what's staying, what's going, all their timeline, things like that. So we know what we're working with already. But we also look at, like I go through and I take pictures of the HVAC. I take pictures of the water heater. I take pictures of the house in general. And then go back and look at them later because sometimes you don't always see stuff as you're walking through. And I go back and look, and I'll research on the age of things, and I'll look at scratched floors or things like that, and put together a recommendation list on that, and say, this is like this is what we think we need to do based on. Like, and so a lot of times I come back and I'm like, well, when I see other houses I've done research on, if you leave it like this and we just declutter, you're probably in this range. If you do these couple of things, that's going to take away, like, again, I'm going to use the 30-year-old, the old HVAC system that's still working. Client's like, well, I don't want to have to replace that. I'm like, yeah, but a buyer is going to look at that and say, I'm going to need to do this sooner. So simply, okay, well, go get it serviced. Costs a couple $100, and consider a home warranty. Have the home warranty on the house so they know it's covered. Now it takes that issue away. It's things like that. Or sometimes I'll see rooms and I'm like, I've had clients that have used perfectly good rooms as storage areas. Well, simply decluttering out does not give that room any sort of personality. But that may be something where we may talk about staging and say, hey, can we set this up to make this more like a music room or a whatever room to show some stuff off? And I've looked at that, and through all of our stuff, what staging being as equal part of that as anything else. Of like, these are the things, power wash, like the little things you can do to make a house look good. Where now we're talking about the strategy of it, of having, how's your house going to set compared to somebody else? Because they're going to look at your house and they're going to look at another house. We've gone, when I was saying about the house that we had that was right around the corner from the other one, I wanted to make sure that availability was most important, because I knew that there were going to be people that were going to go and see that house. And then as they were driving out, see our sign and say, oh, let's go check that one out too. And we were going to get that. It is 11 o'clock and we have a showing request for 11:05. We want to make sure that we have like that, those things. Just looking at every angle of it to make sure that that strategy works. Having those conversations, then when it comes back to, it's not what's it going to cost me, it's like, hey, I will gladly pay that. So I'd love to hear some of the things you guys are doing as far as your strategies, some of the conversations that you're having as we get ready to wrap up today. How's online looking? All good. Yeah, so I think we talked a lot about the market deciding value and positioning. That level of understanding the market, that level of what are we doing to prepare a house, how is that going to be, how do we get more eyeballs on your house than another one, and get that going. That's all good. That's all good. All right. We could talk a little bit pricing as we finish wrapping up here. Data strategy, emotional neutrality is a big one. I mean, I think data we all know. We're all fairly good at comping houses and figuring out what's out there, figuring out what the house may appraise for versus what somebody may think it's worth. Having that strategy we talked about, I think that emotional neutrality is a big one. I do want to spend a minute or two on that one too. It's not always an easy conversation to have with somebody, to be like, yes, this is your home. I find that very rarely do I see somebody selling a house just because they feel like selling it. There's usually a reason, there's something going on. Their life has changed, they're moving, they're whatever it is, maybe moving out of the area. They may move it into a bigger house and move into a smaller house. There's always some sort of emotional issue going on there as to why they're selling a house. And now we have to come in and say, okay, well, this place where you raised your family for the last 20 years is a product that we want to sell for top dollar. And having those conversations are not always easy to say things like, yeah, I know that you love this, but we're not selling to you. And it's, again, not an easy conversation to have, but it's a conversation well worth having. It's just a matter of how you go about doing it. So I'd love to hear how people are tackling that one. But I think that's a pretty big one.
I guess for me, the primary thing is seller motivation.
Yeah.
You know, why are they selling? What, you know, and that's just such a big one. because number one, if they're really committed to this or not. One of the, dealing with staging and getting the home ready and paring things down, one of the first conversations I have with them is like, "You're moving," so let's get to it.
Right.
And if they're like, well, we want to kind of see what's happening with the market, and it's like, all right, let's have this conversation. Are you looking to sell or not? It's kind of like with buyer. That are you out there just kicking tires, or are you really, so almost immediately, when you find out what that motivation is, what you're up
Exactly.
against, and what's the emotional time.
Yeah.
Because it's great when you have, and it's stressful when you have that client that needs to be in California tomorrow, but I'll come this way. But at one time,
Somebody's got to go there.
at one time it was, but it's like, all right, great, let's create our timeline, let's get going. But if you have someone that's just looking to move up or down and really doesn't want to, I like my rate, I don't, it's like, all right, let's find out. What's really happening.
Well, and I think that helps a lot too, because when you find out if their motivation is just, I'd like to be a little bit closer to this, but I bought 3 years ago and I got a good interest rate, and that, like, they're not going to be as motivated to do things. But then it's also our choice to maybe not take that listing, because part of that is we look at the investment we're putting into doing that as well. But I think most times, I think you'd agree, those issues, it's more the guy who has to move for the job than it is the person who's like, I'm bored with my house. Like, I have yet to see a person who's bored with the house once. It's understanding all that stuff, and like you said, it's getting them prepared to move. I'm also big on, because every house needs to be decluttered, whether you stage or not, that people know what a garage looks like. When in doubt, put stuff in the garage. Yeah. You can tell.
Sure.
Will the cars fit? Yes, they will. We'll let you know. Yeah. Box it up, put the stuff in the garage, great storage place, and that worked out great.
Online has said that it's difficult because technically it's like two parties one.
Oh yes. Oh yes. No, agreed. And I have a couple going on. I have one that's great. I have one that wasn't so great. But it's tough because trying to get both people on the same page, who's making the decision. I had one instance at one point where I had a friend of mine who was getting divorced after 20 years. And his wife, because she was upset that they were getting divorced and it was not a good divorce, she was not going to work with me no matter what I said. He conversely was not going to work with the agent that she picked, no matter what she said, because they were just going to butt heads on it. I got together with the other agent who happened to be in my office, so it worked out pretty well. And we just put ourselves together and we said, why don't we just do it together? And at the end of the day, we want to make sure the client's happy. We do that. But yeah, so divorces are not always fun. I have actually a pretty good one going on now where they're like, it just didn't work out. Like, everyone's happy about it. We just want to get the house sold. And they're pretty good on, like, okay, well, here's our timeline. Here's the things we're doing. Let's go. And not always that easy. We can only hope. Call me, I'll tell you stories. Oh, I could. I was telling Glenn when he walked in, I had a client that he stayed with the house for, that the wife multiple times called me up and was like, please don't quit. Because if you don't do this, I don't know who will. And because I was somehow somewhat getting through to the husband, but there was a lot of question as to whether, while they had to sell the house, whether he really wanted. And we had to have some difficult conversations. I moved to that slide and didn't even know it. How about that? But yeah, I mean, which is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. It's a lot of that stuff isn't easy, but we have those difficult conversations. And yeah, divorces are not fun. I love the ones who are like, we're having another baby. Sorry.
The ones that are amicable.
Yes, the amicable ones or the ones where they're like, I am motivated because we're having another baby, this house isn't big enough, we need to move someplace. We don't get to pick. So hopefully, and I'll talk just a little bit as we wrap up on things that have shifted in my conversations. We've talked a little bit about around here, things have kind of slowed down, but then are picking up again now. And I personally just didn't see a whole lot of that. And I think a lot of it was just the conversations that we're having, talking about a plan. We have a plan. We're not just doing this and people seeing that. I am super thankful that we have a lot of great stuff that I don't think a lot of agents take advantage of on the marketing side, but just on an expertise side, having conversations with people. I'm not going in and trying to shove a listing agreement down their throat. I'm like, this is our plan. This is what we're going to come up with, and really take that as an evaluation on both ends of like, not, I don't ever say it to anybody, but I'm looking at it saying, do I want this business or not? And I've seen the greatest growth in my business over the past 12 months by opening up the amount of people that I'm willing to say no to. Because having a listing sounds great, but a listing that's not going to sell, or a listing that's going to take up so much of your time and energy just to get it through the door, I'm like, I can go sell 3 other houses and do this. There are a bunch of people who do things way different than I do. If that's what works for you, then go work with them. Like I don't, sure, I'd love every person to work with me, but I want every person to get the best possible value from what they're looking for. That's not me, and I'm not the right fit for that. I would gladly recommend somebody else for that. What did I stop saying? I think I stopped talking about commission, because you, like, as salespeople, you're like, I want to deal with the issues that I know they're going to ask first. So I sometimes anticipate objections and try to get the answers out earlier. And I have stopped talking so much and start listening more. And I find that I'm infinitely smarter when you tell me what you want and all I'm doing is giving it to you. And it's really not harder than that. I mean, I make that sound overly simple, but when I understand what's important to you, I can tailor my approach rather than saying, this is how we're going to do it, and making sure people are valuing that. So, and I lead off with, what are we hoping to accomplish? Like, I mean, everybody wants to sell their house. What are we hoping to accomplish? Do we need to be out by a certain time because we need to move across country? Do we need to have something going on? Are we like, the people that say, and I'm sure plenty of you guys get this, like, I'm not in a rush to sell my house. Well, everybody's in a rush to sell, so else wouldn't be selling it. You're not saying, oh, I want to have the house on for 6 months. And some will say that, and I have to educate them and say, well, the longer it's on, the longer people are going to think something's wrong with it. So even in a situation like that, where it's like, well, if you're not ready to sell it, let's wait. Like, and then, yeah, so all that comes down to that ability to say no. All right, so that was it for today. If you guys have any questions, because I wanted to keep you guys out on time. I know we said 10 to 11. We open until 11:30, just in case. We're going to talk about some of our future huddles coming up. For those of you guys who maybe the first time coming on, we do this on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. We would love to have you in the room. It's much easier to have a good conversation here, but we love having you guys online too. So we've had people from all over the country get on, and we love that. We love hearing how things are different in other places, but we'd love to have you in the room. So these are the next couple huddles that are coming up. We have known for something, how top agents get picked. And it's going to kind of tie in a little bit on some of the things we've talked about in the past 3 weeks of like what separates you, and are the clients matching up with what your perspectives are. We're going to talk about that. And then one of my favorites, the 12 months after closing, what matters most. We have a pretty good plan. I feel that, I get once a week, whenever we do our Tuesday information stuff that goes out, I get a client who asks me a question about something that has nothing to do with buying or selling, but it has something to do with their house. And so I want to share a little bit of that about our plan, where we keep ourselves in front of people, so that way when that comes up or when they're going to refer somebody, they're calling us, and it's not like, hey, I want to talk to you, and I'm going to talk to 5 people afterwards. Like, they know that we're the resource for them. So when it comes time to do our thing, we're here. So we thank you guys all here. If there are any topics you guys want to learn about, want to hear it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us online or through email to let us know if there's stuff that you want to do. You can always pre-RSVP for events, so we have you down, but you're going to get the reminder anyway. So unless there are any additional questions coming in online, or you guys have anything here, I want to thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. We will follow up with a replay here in just a few hours. And if you have further questions, you will get all of Rich's contact information in Glenn. And thanks, guys, for attending. Have a great rest of your day.